In Colombia's presidential elections, Gustavo Petro and Rodolfo Hernandez advanced to a second round scheduled for June 19th. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged actions to end human trafficking. Nigerian authorities confirmed the first death caused by the monkeypox virus. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. The historical pact candidate Gustavo Petro and his vice presidential candidate Francia Marquez won Sunday's first-round presidential elections after securing more than 40% of the votes. Petro will face Rodolfo Hernandez in a runoff. With almost 100% of the ballots counted, the historical pact candidate won the first round with more than 8,500,000 votes, accounting for 40.32% of votes, and will face the candidate of the League of Anti-Corruption Rulers, Rodolfo Hernandez, and his running mate Marlene Castillo, who obtained 5,953,209 votes, representing 28.15% of votes. On the other hand, the National Registry's office confirmed the call for the runoff presidential election for next June 19, 2022. And in Colombia, presidential candidate Rodolfo Hernandez announced that he will not form alliances with traditional political parties. During an interview for international media, the candidate of the League of Anti-Corruption Governors recalled that he registered his candidacy as an independent candidate, and being in alliance with other groups contradicts his commitment. In this context, Hernandez welcomed the Colombians who have the intention of joining his political project. According to the National Registry's office, Hernandez obtained 28.15% of votes, behind Gustavo Petro of the Historical Pact, who won with 40.32% of the tally. The Puebla Group welcomed the results obtained by the Historical Pact in the presidential elections of Colombia and considered that this force represents hope for Latin America. On a statement, the political and academic forum, integrated by representatives of the Latin American left wing, saluted the ample first majority of the coalition, which, for the first time in many years, gathers the hopes for change in the country. Also indicated that what happened brings new ways of dialogue, social equality, and integration to the table. They highlighted that the democratic spirit and the peaceful will expressed in the election day, which was unprecedented for its level of participation. They stressed the great work of young people who dream about a new Colombia where all the excluded are recognized. A group of indigenous people in Colombia, victims of forced displacement, arrived Monday in the city of Medellin. The indigenous people from the department of Chocó were forced to leave their homes because of armed groups operating in the region. The authorities of Medellin are providing assistance to the indigenous people currently lodged at a shelter provided by the Medellin mayor's office. The authorities warned that at least 300 indigenous people could arrive in the city as of last May 10th. There have been constant instances of violence in remote areas of Chocó. On Monday, the Chilean government announced that it will extend the state of exception in the south of the country imposed 2 weeks ago. It will be extended for another 15 days in an effort to control the violence in the Araucanía region. At a press conference, Interior Minister Itzia Siches said the measure is in keeping with the Constitution and that the national government has the power to try to solve the conflict in the region. In this sense, Siches called on all the sectors of society to support the decision for this territory, considering the many instances of violence that occur in that area. She also said that at this time, all political forces in the country should stand united to redress the growing violence. In the Araucanía region, the Mapuche ethnic group is constantly mobilizing itself in defense of their ancestral lands. The Peruvian prosecutor's office resumed on Monday the search for the remains of the victims of the La Cantuta case who were disappeared in 1992 by the Colina military group during the government of Alberto Fujimori. The second criminal prosecutor's office, specialized in human rights, ordered to restart the search to find the remaining 9 students and a professor of Cantuta University who disappeared. The search will be extended until June 22nd in Cieneguilla, where the first signs of this massacre were found, and is in charge of the specialized forensic team of the Legal Medicine Institute from the Public Ministry. The objective of the initiative is to offer answers to the relatives about the location of the victims. Delegations from 21 countries are attending the second Ibero-American Summit on Migration and Human Rights underway in Ecuador. The Ecuadorian Ombudsman's Office, as host of the event, said the meeting aims at strengthening interinstitutional coordination among the entities that make up the Ibero-American Ombudsman Federation regarding human migrations. At the event, a protocol to prevent and respond to human rights violations or attempted violations against people in a migratory situation was officially introduced.
At this summit, the Ombudsman International Federation will discuss the steps to enforce a protocol for the prevention and response to violations or possible violations of the human rights of migrants, to promote international cooperation and cross-border exchange of information.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called Monday for much more to be done to break the smugglers' grip and better protect migrants in vulnerable situations, especially women and girls. The highest representative of the United Nations expressed on his official Twitter account that unregulated migration is a cruel reign of human traffickers and has a terrible cost. The UN headquarters in New York hosted recently the International Migration Review Forum to promote and review the policies adopted by the different countries in this area. At that meeting held on May 19th, Guterres called for concrete actions to put an end to the business of human trafficking. New Ukrainian artillery attacks were registered in the center of Donetsk on Monday, leaving at least 5 people dead and 16 injured. One of the dead was a 13-year-old boy. 2 elementary schools were the hardest hit. Our special envoy Alejandro Cook was there.
In downtown Donetsk. 1 woman was killed here and 2 other people were wounded. The Ukrainian attack with NATO 155mm shells took place at about 10:30 a.m. when the school was busy with parents and teachers.
My name is Vladimir. I was sitting on the balcony at the time this was happening, and it collapsed in such a way that I had to run and get a bucket of water because it was really scary. I looked out the window and there was smoke. It's coming from this side, and they called from the parking lot saying my car was on fire. I went to look, I went inside, and you see I have a mask buried in there. I can understand combat actions and everything, but when our guys shoot, they don't shoot civilians. They don't shoot hidden under the gold trenches of a tank.
This is school number 22 in central Donetsk, hit also by a 155mm shell carrying the NATO serial number. It's a NATO standard weapon given recently to the Ukrainian forces by the Western countries. 2 schools hit at the same time on a Monday morning can be no mistake.
This is the kind of sneak attack, which I will call terrorism. Terrorists fire and hit from everybody. And what kind of ammunition was used? With the expert determine that. We understand that it was heavy artillery and multiple rocket launchers. In addition to the old school here, also School 5, the gymnasium and the presidential quarters were also involved today. It is the city center itself, you see it, and you realize that there are no military facilities. There is no military position here. The military that have appeared are the ones that have to provide security, first aid, evacuate the wounded.
That's it for now. Over to you.
The Constitutional Committee of Syria, made up of representatives of the government, the opposition, and the civil society, is holding its 8th round of negotiations in Switzerland for the drafting of a new constitution. The work of the Constitutional Committee is under the auspices of the United Nations in the framework of a political solution to the Syrian crisis ongoing since 2011, and keeping with UN Resolution 2254 issued in 2015, which stipulates the formation of a transitional government and the drafting of a constitution before holding new presidential and parliamentary elections. The parties will continue to present principles that can be formulated within the Constitution. These will include, in the first place, principles relating to unilateral coercive measures and economic sanctions imposed on the country. In Brazil, the Pernambuco state government upped its official death estimate to 91 after a week of torrential rains hit the area, causing flooding and landslides. From Recife, our correspondent Brian Meyer gives us more details.
The low-lying Brazilian city of Recife is the world's 16th worst affected city by climate change. This week, after 7 days of unusually high rainfall, flooding and a series of landslides began in neighborhoods on the urban periphery where, due to lack of adequate housing, the city's poor are forced to live in disaster risk zones.
There have been several landslides and a lot of houses have been knocked over, and there are a lot of people who are still buried under the rubble. Firemen have been here with tractors since yesterday, and everyone in the community is helping us, but we are suffering because we have relatives, neighbors, and children still missing.
Although building containment walls helps reduce risks, local government officials have cut corners in poor neighborhoods by laying black plastic tarps over areas at risk for landslides. Officially, it's only legal as a temporary emergency measure, but in many cases they remain there for years as city officials route most of their housing funding for subsidies to middle-class real estate developers.
It is still raining and there is still a high risk of landslides, but when this moment of chaos is over, we have to think seriously about how to urbanize the hillsides and poor neighborhoods, and we have to overcome the problem of environmental racism.
On Sunday night, the state government confirmed that 83 people have died, but this number is expected to continue to rise as heavy rains are forecast for another week. Brian Muir, teleSUR, Recife.
President Jair Bolsonaro visited the disaster zone and sent his condolences to the families of the people who died in torrential rains in northeastern Brazil as rescue workers continue the search for victims. Releasing an updated toll, authorities said 26 people remained missing in the region around the city of Recife. The government allocated a total of 1 billion reais in emergency and reconstruction funds, said Regional Development Minister Daniel Ferreira. The risk of floods in and around Recife, the capital of Pernambuco state, remains very high, said the National Disaster Monitoring Center. A series of devastating floods in Brazil that have killed hundreds of people in recent months and which, according to experts, are aggravated by climate change, while the government has been criticized for its management during the disasters. In Mexico, authorities declared a state of maximum alert ahead of the arrival of Hurricane Agatha to the south coast, which has strengthened in the last hours, according to reports from the United States National Hurricane Center. Weather authorities informed that the hurricane strengthened to Category 2 in the region of Oaxaca, and it is likely to make landfall this Monday afternoon as a Category 3. Authorities also detailed that the hurricane is moving towards the northeast at a speed of 9 kilometers per hour with maximum sustained winds of at least 175 kilometers per hour. On the other hand, the National Coordination of Civil Protection stated that the southern states of the country are on high alert and more than 200 shelters have been set up in case of a critical situation. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. Nigerian authorities confirmed the first death caused by the monkeypox virus. Nigeria's Center for Disease Control reported 21 active cases of the disease so far, of which only one has been fatal. The disease was a 40-year-old person who was taking immunosuppressive drugs. Authorities report that there have been isolated cases of monkeypox in at least 9 regions of the African country. Despite this recent deadly case, the World Health Organization assured that another pandemic is not expected, but acknowledged that there are still many unanswered questions about the monkeypox. Police fired tear gas to disperse thousands of students trying to storm the Sri Lankan president's home Sunday as the government offered an olive branch to demonstrators demanding his resignation. Anti-riot squads used water cannon followed by tear gas as furious protesters pulled down yellow iron barricades across a road leading to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's official residence in Colombo. Thousands of men and women demonstrated for the 51st straight day outside Rajapaksa's seafront office, demanding he step down over the country's worst economic crisis since independence. Female medical and science students joined the protests, with many running for cover when authorities unleashed a water cannon. An unprecedented shortage of foreign currency to import even the most essential supplies, including food, fuel, and medicines, has led to severe hardships for the country's 22 million people. Investigations are ongoing in Burkina Faso's Perkoa zinc mine as 2 more dead bodies have been recovered, bringing the total of victims to 6. 2 miners are still missing. Unexpected torrential rains flooded the mine 6 weeks ago, trapping 8 miners working at a depth of more than 500 meters. Despite diminishing hopes, rescue efforts continue and experts have been flown in from Canada, Australia, and South Africa to help with operations. The group of miners consisted of 1 Tanzanian, 1 Zambian, and 6 Burkinabes. Authorities are yet to reveal the identities of the bodies that were recovered. In the heart of Gabon's equatorial forest, officers from the Ministry of Water and Forestry inspect vehicles in search of game or guns that potential poachers could have hidden. Although this small Central African country has made the protection of its biodiversity a priority, cohabitation between animals and villagers remains complicated. Gabon's anti-poaching brigade search vehicles from top to bottom. The unit's task is to help guard Gabon's rich biodiversity. Forests cover 88% of the surface of this small Central African nation, providing a haven and a tourism magnet for species ranging from tropical hardwoods and plants to panthers, elephants, and chimps.
We have observed strong poaching activities in these areas, so we had to be present on the ground to regulate these activities. It should be noted that hunting in Gabon is not prohibited, it is regulated.
President Xi Jinping reiterated his commitment to maintain cooperative and respectful relations with Pacific Island nations in order to promote mutual development. In a written speech to the Second China-Pacific Island countries' foreign ministers meeting on Monday, the Chinese leader recalled that his country upholds the idea of equality of all countries and is guided by the principle of seeking the greater good and shared interests that yield real results based on friendship and good faith, as well as the development of friendly ties. In this regard, President Xi reiterated his readiness to work with Pacific Island countries to strengthen trust, build consensus in the joint pursuit of development, and join forces to build an even closer community of China and the Pacific Island countries with a shared future. Fijian President Ratu William Katonivera said on Monday that his country has been proud of the strong relations with China and will continue to firmly adhere to the One China policy. While meeting with visiting Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the Fijian president expressed gratitude to China for providing his country with selfless support and assistance, which has facilitated Fiji in speeding up economic development and improving the livelihood of the Fijian people. The president added that Fiji and China have enjoyed a long-lasting history of friendly exchanges, and Fiji stands ready to strengthen cooperation with China in all fields so as to achieve common development and prosperity. For his part, Wang said China's development and revitalization are the common achievement of the developing countries and a growing force for world peace, demonstrating that China will be more resourceful and powerful in safeguarding the legitimate interests of the developing countries on the international arena. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.